There are four major phases of capital projects. Procurement. Projects need to make the formal arrangements to have the people and equipment available to implement the project. Design. Engineers need to define the details of what needs to be installed and how the systems need to function to implement the project's intended outcome. Construction. The design on paper needs to be installed in the field. And commissioning. The equipment and systems need to function as originally intended in the design to meet the requirements of the project. There are of course many more details that make up projects, but these are the four major phases at the highest level that make up the start to finish of a project once it is approved. However, many projects are missing the last phase of projects and take this approach instead. Commissioning is lumped in as a sub-activity to construction. Commissioning is not included in sufficient detail in contracts. Commissioning is forgotten about or ignored until the end of the project. Commissioning is thought of as another subcontract to construction, similar to any other installation subcontractor, as just another group to mobilize to site. When this happens, most of the commissioning processes that should have taken place during earlier stages of the project are missed. There is no opportunity to proactively plan for commissioning to ensure it is successful. And by taking this approach, all of the risks during procurement, design, and construction are deferred to commissioning when there is no time to recover. This can be deceiving to how well your project is going. It may seem that procurement, design, and construction are going well. Everyone is diligently completing their part of the project, due dates for deliverables are being met, and the project seems to be going on track. But all of a sudden, your project starts to see issues as commissioning starts. This isn't because something went wrong with commissioning. This is because of things that were done or not done during procurement, design, and construction that are now being realized during commissioning. Stages of the commissioning process that should have taken place earlier were skipped, and the project risks are now being realized as issues during commissioning. Think of projects like a string of Christmas lights. Remember the scene in Christmas Vacation where Clark and Rusty are putting up the lights on their house and Clark hands Rusty a big knot of Christmas lights to untangle? This is a good analogy for projects. Projects are big, moving machines with lots of people involved, lots of information being generated, and lots of activities taking place on site. As your project starts, there are a lot of activities taking place in parallel, and very soon, all of the parallel activities resemble a big knotted mess of many strings of lights. And it doesn't take long once projects start to get this tangled mess. This is normal on projects. However, towards the end of projects, this ball of lights needs to be untangled and pulled back into a single string of lights to get a single sequence of activities to achieve the project in-service date. There are two approaches on projects. You can create a big tangled mess of lights and leave it all for your commissioning team to sort out at the end of your project, or you can keep this ball of lights untangled as the project proceeds through design and construction by having your commissioning team involved earlier to help guide earlier stages of the project for what is required to avoid the tangled mess. Most projects take the first approach, to create the biggest knot of lights and dump it on the commissioning team at the end of the project and ask them to sort it out. And with such a big tangled knot to untie, it is going to take the commissioning team longer than planned to sort it out. The role of commissioning is to untangle the project and bring everything back together as one system to ensure everything is functioning together as one functional plant process. And you can help them do this proactively in advance, or you can dump it all on them at once at the end of the project during commissioning. Untangling all the design and construction tasks of the project and bring them back together as one functioning system is no small undertaking. This requires some thought and planning by the commissioning team to make sure it goes well to achieve the project in-service date, and is the reason to involve your commissioning team much earlier in projects. Projects that are successful take a proactive approach to sorting out the tangled mess early in the project to ensure there's a robust plan to complete commissioning, and have a well-functioning system in the end. But leave this too late in the project, and there is no opportunity to proactively address issues and plan to complete the project on time. All the risks that could have been mitigated during design and construction now become issues that delay critical path activities during commissioning. Projects that approach commissioning as a sub-activity to construction have a difficult time making sense of the knotted activities. There is no dedicated commissioning team to properly plan how the project will end. And leaving commissioning as an activity for the end of construction does not allow any time to plan for the specialized work and ensure the project in-service date can be met. The industry-best approach that saves your project from schedule delays and cost overruns is by structuring your project with a dedicated commissioning phase at the end, starting right at the beginning of your project. Start with the end in mind, and don't leave commissioning as an afterthought to be determined after contracts are awarded. This gives your project the best chance of success to deliver on time and on budget. You may hear things like, "We don't have budget to engage 1 or 2 commissioning team members that early in the project. Commissioning is in a few years from now. We have more important activities to focus on right now. We'll figure out commissioning later. Our design consultant will advise us on commissioning, but I'll give you a hint. Design is a front-end activity, not a back-end activity. Design engineers are focused on getting the project started, not finished." Or you might also hear, "The contract doesn't include commissioning in their scope of work." Well, another hint, you better fix the contract now before it costs you even more money later. What these examples mean is that your project was never set up for success from the beginning. It was not set up with the end in mind. And it is very likely that problems will arise later in your project that will cause significant schedule delays and cost overruns far in excess of the money saved at the beginning of the project by not starting with the end in mind. This isn't anyone's fault. Projects are busy with a long list of things to do. When you have an infinite list of tasks on your to-do list, it's human nature to focus on the urgent items to be addressed. But this is all the more reason to have a dedicated commissioning team to help guide the project to success during commissioning. All 4 phases of projects are required. Procurement must be meticulously executed in detail to define the rules of the game for all phases, especially for how the project will end during commissioning. Design needs to prepare all the details to define what installation activities must take place during construction and how the systems are to function during commissioning. Construction quality needs to be exact with every small little design detail included to set commissioning up for success. Commissioning needs to be executed flawlessly and snag-free to be able to meet the project in-service date. When design details are missing, this always leads to problems during later stages of the project. How do installers know what to install? Or how does the commissioning team know how systems are to function? Could you imagine only installing 90% of the equipment during construction? What chance would the project ever have to work properly? The same applies to commissioning. How can the last phase of projects, the most important phase to make sure everything works per the contract as it's supposed to, be skipped or poorly executed? What would be the point of many years of everyone's efforts to finish a project to only 95% complete with systems that partially function and don't really work, or are unreliable and riddled with bugs and deficiencies, and remain that way for the life of the plant? It makes no sense. It's certainly not good value for the money invested in projects. Projects don't have to end this way when you follow a structured commissioning process starting early in your project. We show you the structured commissioning process to follow through all stages of the project that successful projects are using to improve their project commissioning processes. Get started right away with our free 3-day mini course that shows you the commissioning process to follow. See you soon.